At this moment, agreeing carelessly would be foolish and would likely arouse Hua Tuu's suspicion. Jung Chu did not answer directly but instead skillfully kept a measured distance, neither too close nor too far, as if helping Ba Lap secure the next move, while also creating the chance to extract more clues from Hua Tuu's mouth about the rules of the script. After that, he could compare what he learned with Kwang Hong Nia, making matters much more certain. First, they needed to leave. Jung Chu led Hua Tuu away from the bustling pier. Hua Tuu turned his head to look at the crowd moving through the dock, asking in puzzlement, "Weren't we going to inquire about the Bach family opera troupe?" Jung Chu explained as they walked. Boatmen have many taboos. Most of them worship the Water Dragon King, and the greatest taboo is mentioning sinking or capsizing. If we ask here about the shipwreck 10 years ago, too many people might overhear, and if the overseers find out, it will cause trouble. You really know a lot. Hua Tuu obediently walked beside him. They arrived at a shaded spot near the pier. The place was somewhat dirty and messy, with a small wooden sign planted in the ground and several bare-armed men resting nearby. Judging by their clothes, they were all dock porters, but most were older, without the sturdy builds of the younger men. Seeing Jung Chu and Hua Tuu approach, they quickly surrounded them, calling out, "Master, do you need goods transported? Don't be fooled by my thin frame. My strength is solid, unlike those young ones who only know how to slack off." From a few sentences, Hua Tuu quickly understood that these were unemployed porters from the old dock, a trade that relied mainly on arm strength. When they heard Jung Chu say there were no goods to move, the men dispersed. He walked straight toward an elderly porter squatting on the ground, his eyes clouded. "I want to ask you something." When Jung Chu pulled out a small piece of silver, the old man's eyes lit up, and he reached out for it, but Jung Chu pulled it back. The old man immediately stood, showing a smile he thought was friendly, revealing yellowed teeth with several gaps, and flattered them. "Sirs, whatever you want to know, just ask. I've worked at this pier for nearly 20 years. There's nothing I don't know." Jung Chu asked straight away. 10 years ago, here at Lao Ngulon Dock, there was a shipwreck carrying the Bach family opera troupe. Do you know about it? Hearing this, the old man's flattering expression vanished, and fear flickered in his eyes. Why are you asking about that?" Seeing the reaction, Jung Chu knew he had the right man. "It has nothing to do with you. I'm just curious. If you can tell me the truth, this silver is yours." The old man stared at the piece of silver, then at Jung Chu, hesitating for a moment before nodding. "All right, I'll tell you, but not here." Understanding his concern, Jung Chu nodded. The three of them left the pier, winding their way to a quiet place before sitting down. The old man began. "These days, few know about this, but back then, it caused quite a stir. Out of the whole ship, only a handful survived. I clearly remember it was the 6th day of the 9th month in the year Kandan. That noon, I unloaded goods for the Nian family's fabric shop in the eastern part of the city. By dusk, just after I had collected my wages, a group from the Bach family arrived with a lot of luggage, hurriedly boarding the ship." Hua Tuu interrupted. "Are you sure they were from the Bach family? Don't be fooled by my poverty now. Back then, I was well known on the docks and often went to the opera house to watch performances. I recognized the Bach family's stewards immediately." Jung Chu asked, "Then did you see Hai Lak?" "No," the old man shook his head. Hua Tuu glanced at Jung Chu, clearly implying that if they were seen alive before boarding, it meant they hadn't been silenced in the Fong family's residence. Jung Chu pressed further. "Besides the Bach family troupe, was anyone else traveling with them?" The old man grimaced. "It was nearly dark then. I can't remember clearly. I wouldn't make things up." Jung Chu handed him half a piece of silver. The old man bit it carefully. Then his face lit up with joy. "After that, I went home to sleep. The next morning, when I came to the dock, there was a crowd, and the constables were there. I heard that during the night, a ship had sunk, and many had died. Besides the Bach family troupe, there were also a few overseers from a nearby military camp, and I heard they held fairly high positions. The incident was so big that the authorities investigated for a long time. Many boats had to stay docked. Even ship owners who spent a lot of silver couldn't get permission to leave." Lowering his voice, the old man added mysteriously, "But at the time, there were rumors that something about it wasn't right. The waters of Lao Ngulon were always calm, and there were no large rocks on the riverbed. That day, the weather was fine, no rain, no fog. But once the ship reached deeper waters, it suddenly poured rain, and thick fog rolled in. Other porters told me they had never seen such strange fog in their lives. Within it, you could see the ashes of the dead, and even the lanterns on the ship were invisible. At this, Jung-Chu and Hua Tuc's faces changed instantly, for they had experienced a similarly strange fog and sudden rain the previous night. The old man, thinking his story had frightened them, continued, but the scariest part was that the ship suddenly stopped in the middle of the river, as if something in the water had grabbed it. Then it sank very quickly. There were many good swimmers aboard, but in the end, only one person escaped. Who is that? That man over there on the boat, the one the old ferryman relies on. No one knows his real name. It's just that at the pier, everyone calls him the son-in-law of the river god. This man swims with an unpredictable skill. Even when waves several meters high crash toward him, he dares to dive down and catch the Jiamengzi. Son-in-law of the river god? This was the first time Hua Tuc had heard such a strange nickname. He's the son-in-law of the Haba, that's the river deity, the water god. Ancient records say that Haba's name was Feng Di. Jung-Chu explained briefly. Hearing this, the old dock worker grinned in agreement. This gentleman here is truly knowledgeable. That's exactly right. Where is this son-in-law of the river god? Take us to him, Jung-Chu said without beating around the bush. If they could find a survivor of that capsized boat incident, things would become much simpler. At this, the old dock worker's expression turned hard to read. Then he shook his head. He doesn't row boats here anymore. After that incident, he quit the old job completely. They say he swore a deadly oath to the Dragon King never to go into the water again. From what the old man said, Jung-Chu was certain that this man knew a few secrets he didn't want others to learn. The most important thing now was to find him and somehow make him talk. Where can we find this son-in-law of the river god? The old dock worker looked troubled, his narrow eyes blinking rapidly. Well, he and I have a bit of acquaintance. If you force the matter, it'll put me in a very awkward position. Jung-Chu pulled out a small piece of silver. The old man's breath quickened at the sight, though he tried to act restrained. The thing is, it's been a long time, and my memory is fuzzy. Jung-Chu took out another piece of silver, this one much larger. No rush. If you can't remember, I'll just ask someone else. With so many people at the pier, there are bound to be one or two who remember clearly. The old man immediately stepped forward and snatched the silver, clutching it tightly in his hand. He lives in Li Si Alley, the third house from the end of the main alley going west. I once delivered wine to him a long time ago and passed by there. A little silver is fine, but if I find out you lied to us, the consequences won't be pleasant. Jung-Chu stepped closer, smiling without smiling. Wouldn't dare. Absolutely wouldn't dare. After getting the information, Jung-Chu and Hua Tuc were about to head back. The time they'd agreed with the carriage driver was almost up. But just as they walked a short distance, footsteps suddenly sounded behind them. The old dock worker came running after them, swallowing hard, his expression tense. He stared at the two for a long moment before saying, "Gentlemen, I've already taken your silver, so there's something I must tell you. I don't know the exact reason, but take my advice. It's best not to dig too deeply into this matter. I once heard an old dockhand, after getting drunk, tell me, that night when the son-in-law of the river god managed to crawl ashore, he was half dead, breathing out more than in. If it hadn't been for a traveling physician who happened to be there and gave him several strong doses of medicine, he probably wouldn't have survived the night. When he woke up, do you know what the first thing he said was?" The old man panted. "It was, 'Don't pull my leg. There's a drifter in the water.'" On the way back, Jung-Chu kept thinking about the old man's words. Water drifter, he knew, referred to a drowned corpse floating in the water. But what this man encountered was probably no ordinary corpse, most likely a water ghost. While he was lost in thought, a pastry was suddenly held out in front of him. Turning, Jung-Chu saw Hua Tuc's face. "Eat while it's still hot. After all this running around, you must be hungry." The pastry was something Hua Tuc had bought near the pier. She had bought several, but insisted on tearing one in half to share, the two of them eating one together, each taking a half. A bold move indeed. While eating, Hua Tuc scooted closer, her eyes carrying a hint of admiration. "So, what exactly do you do that you know so much?" "Know so much about what?" Jung-Chu asked through a mouthful of pastry. "All these strange things, the river god, the dragon king of the waters, and all that stuff about the Fong family estate. It's creepy as hell," Hua Tuc said. pretending to be frightened and patting her chest. It's nothing. I just read a lot. Jung-Chu replied in a lecturing tone. As they say, in books there are beauties like jade. In books there are houses of gold. You're kidding. Books also have star-crossed lovers, and heroes suffering for beautiful women. Why haven't I seen you learn any of that? Hua Tuc leaned closer, teasing, forcing Jung-Chu into the corner of the carriage and locking eyes with him. Jung-Chu thought to himself, this woman, cold as she seems, turns out to be quite daring. But he was used to adapting, so he feigned an embarrassed refusal. After all, he was only 24, looked even younger, more like a university student, and lacked much real-world experience. Being flustered when approached by a beautiful woman was perfectly natural. Seeing her goal achieved, Hua Tuc stopped pressing and instead coyly asked, so tell me the truth. How can I find you when we're out in the field? Ha! So she wants to get the real scoop on me. Jung-Chu felt slightly tense, his face reddening. I work at the History Museum, holding a job while preparing for my postgraduate exams. Hua Tuc softened her tone. Actually, I'm also a university student. When I said before that I was a lecturer, that was just to fool them. I was afraid of running into bad people. In this world, good, trustworthy people like you are rare. That Brother Kwong is so fierce, like one of those murder suspects you see on crime shows. Just looking at him scares me. Don't misunderstand. Kwong might still be a good man. I just don't want you to be deceived. Jung-Chu said. You're overacting. If Kwong Hong Nia knew I was talking behind his back, he'd probably toss me in the river to soak. Hua Tuc sighed, then pretended to reflect. It's fine. I know you mean well. I'll keep an eye on the other teammates. Good. Then I can rest easy. Jung-Chu nodded. Then Hua Tuc suddenly changed the subject. Oh right, earlier, in the study of that old Fong family master, I saw you staring at a pair of embroidered shoes on the floor, the ones with the tips cut off. Strange, isn't it? Since they were now on friendlier terms, Jung-Chu answered seriously. That pair of embroidered shoes by the bed was unusual, because they weren't meant for a living person to wear. They were prepared for spirits. It's said that at night, ghosts can't see the person sleeping on the bed, but they can see the shoes and will place their toes on the shoe tips to determine which way the person is lying. Cutting off the shoe tips blinds the ghost. That's why there's an old saying in the yin-yang trade, cut the shoe tips, blind the ghost.